Good afternoon. Thank you for being with us today. From our oldest members who've been diligently supporting us since the beginning of this auspicious event, as well as every new phase to our 21st annual National Science Week, we extend a warm welcome to you all. On behalf of the National Science Week team, the Department of Science and Innovation, the South African Agency for Science and Investment, as well as Northwest University Faculty of Natural and Agricultural Sciences, in conjunction with Science Center, we sincerely thank you and acknowledge every one of you for extending help to us in making this event a grand success. Trust us, all of this would have been just a dream if not for your immense support. Today, I'd like to point your attention to all our fresh-faced learners from different institutions who are making their voices heard by participating and engaging with our distinguished guest speakers and honoring our appointment by streaming our live webinars and attending this auspicious event. You are here today because we value your contributions. We grow and scale successfully only with your dedication. You are an integral part of the National Science Week success story. This year's theme is Making It Possible Through Science. Dr. Moteo Koitsiwi, Dr. Hazel Mufandu, Professor Tewe Midupe, Professor Oliobokola Babalola, have encapsulated that for the past few days, speaking on different topics of interest. We're left with two webinars and we'll be concluding this year's annual National Science Week. Please make sure to join in tomorrow. We'll be streaming the webinar live from Northwest University Potchefstroom campus. Our distinguished guest speaker will be Prof. Alida Herbst, who will be exploring multiple losses and complications in grief as mental health concern during COVID-19 pandemic. I know this is the part where everybody is waiting for. Today, it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to our distinguished guest speaker, Dr. Francis Lugayizi. A round of applause for him, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I'm going to give you guys a brief bio on Dr. Francis Lugayizi before he steps to the mic. Welcome, sir. Dr. Francis Lugayizi received his PhD in computer science in 2016 from Northwest University. He is presently a senior lecturer and subject chair in the Department of Computer of Northwest University, Mafikeng campus. Dr. Francis believes so much that students majoring in computer science should be in a position to build or develop systems through detailed problem and solution analysis compared to the accumulating theoretical knowledge of computer science concepts and terminologies. This forms the background of his favorite Chinese proverb that states, "Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man how to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime." It is from this belief that Dr. Francis finds the pride and passion in teaching modules like data communications and computer networks, database management systems, programming languages, research methodologist, among others. His main research interests are in next-generation mobile networks and software-defined networks. In his leisure time, Dr. Francis enjoys playing and watching soccer. Cooking is another hobby that he enjoys doing. From a family point of view, Dr. Francis is married and has two boys aged 1 and 5, along with a 3-year-old daughter. I'm not going to say much. Can we give Dr. Francis another round of applause as he approaches the stage?
Thank you very much for that introduction. I won't have to do another one, but I'm glad I'm here, and I would like to use this opportunity to share as much information as I can. I'm sure the current slide that you're looking at, you've been seeing it for, I think, a couple of minutes. I won't have to go through it. It sets the background of my discussion this afternoon. And as the brochures have been showing there, I'm here to present mainly on how the current pandemic that we are going through is actually fast-tracking the fourth industrial revolution. And yes, I'm going to be exploring on what the fourth industrial revolution is, but already you can look at it as the current technologies that we are using or we are being forced to use to carry on our lives. But now, previously, these technologies have been a bit slow or in adoption as far as our societies are concerned. COVID-19 has just fast-tracked this, hence the topic on discussion today. How is COVID-19 fast-tracking the fourth industrial revolution? Okay, they've already introduced myself. I won't be doing that again. I'll just go straight into the outline of this webinar. Of course, I'm going to introduce and give you a slight background on what the fourth industrial revolution is all about. We'll go to the basics because I assume not all of us who are here and those who are watching online really understand all these terms from a computer science point of view. So I'll go back to the basics of understanding what these industrial revolutions are. That four is not a decoration. There is a reason why it is called the fourth. Okay, so we'll go into the background and then we'll come back to South Africa and look at what are the current concerns, because the assumption is you'll have understood what the fourth industrial revolution is all about. So we'll look at the main concerns in terms of the skills, corruption, and how generally the fourth industrial revolution is evolving when it comes to the South African context. And then, of course, we'll briefly talk about COVID-19 in South Africa, what the government has done so far, what is it doing, and then we shall go on to look at actually, because by this time, we shall have confirmed that actually 4IR is bound to affect just about anybody, any organization or any business or any institution. Then we'll look at how do you need to prepare? What kind of skills are you supposed to at least have in preparation for this kind of evolution? Of course, then we'll have conclusions, and if time allows, which I know it should because it's a very short presentation, I'll entertain some questions and perhaps discussions here and there. So to quickly start off, we can look at the main keywords of what the topic builds on. But even before that, you can look at that quotation up there by the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, that is Klaus Schwab. He said, I'll read it quickly, "We stand on the brink of technological evolution that will fundamentally alter the way we live, the way we work, and relate to one another." Okay? In its scale, scope, and complexity, the transformation will be unlike anything humankind has experienced before. Those were the words of Klaus, who is the current founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum. He was referring to the fourth industrial revolution. Like I said, I'm going to give a background of what it is. But even before that, there are some concepts we need to first understand because these are the keywords that are going to keep coming back in this presentation. First of all, even to the basic understanding, we know what an industry is, simply a branch of economy that deals with the production of goods and where services are also involved. And then a revolution, anything that is going to cause a dramatic or wide change in our society can tantamount into a revolution. So meaning an industrial revolution involves that transition to manufacturing processes in Europe and the other parts of the world, okay? That's why we say the industrial revolution. It keeps on changing. Maybe now it's starting to make sense that actually the fact that we're talking about the fourth, that means this is the fourth industrial revolution we're experiencing. We are going to see what were the first three, okay, as the background. And of course, we now all know what COVID-19 is, what it has done, I'm here to kind of pull out that silver lining. I know it's very hard to connect a silver lining to COVID. But for us, from a technological point of view, I want to talk about that silver lining that COVID is doing. Of course, the disadvantages, the impact is too much negative. I'm not saying it's good, but there's a silver lining that COVID has brought, and hence the topic. How is it fast-tracking the fourth industrial revolution? So those are the main keywords, okay? So what is the fourth industrial revolution? It is simply that way in which technology is going to cover the gaps between physical, digital, and biological worlds. Okay? We are talking about intelligence. We are talking about things turning into smart. We are talking about smartphones, smart cars. We are talking about smart cars nowadays. Everything is becoming smart. So already you can think of the latest technologies out there. So the fourth industrial revolution is categorizing all these as one, okay? And a background, like I said, it is the reason why it's called the fourth, because we've had a first where we were seeing mechanization, water power, steam power, starting to run production facilities. It was on a low, and that was around the end of the 18th century. That is when we first had the first industrial revolution. Of course, at the beginning of the 20th century, we saw mass production coming into play, assembly lines being developed, and the introduction of electricity when it came to the manufacturing line, okay? So we are seeing that things are evolving. And then we looked at the third, where now we are starting to look at the electronics. We start hearing of computers, okay? Please, the fact that I'm talking about we start doesn't mean I was there. Like you see, this is the 18th century, okay? This is the literature that we have currently, okay? Some of us only started appearing after 1980 when the internet is here, etc. But this is what has been happening, okay? So it is in the third that we start looking at electronics. We are starting to hear of automatic things, automatic ways of doing things, and that is around the 1950s, okay? And recently, we're now hearing the fourth industrial revolution. It is just starting, okay? Much as it has been slow. Why? Because of the infrastructure we have, we might not feel it, but it is happening. We are looking at the use of cyber physical systems. We are going to see actually what are the various pillars that are running the fourth industrial revolution. And of course, automated businesses. So that is a brief background of the timeline as far as the industrial revolution is concerned. So now we know what, first of all, the four means in the fourth industrial revolution. I know in South Africa, it has been there, people talking about it, that what is it, and then you don't care what they're talking about. That is the purpose of this presentation today, okay? And having understood what the fourth industrial revolution is all about, these are the main pillars behind. And look at them as actually the technologies running this revolution. Trust me, you must be falling somewhere. There is a person who has lost a job because of one of these technologies. Okay? I'll briefly talk about a few, and then later we shall see actually the content of this topic. How is COVID-19 actually accelerating the use of all these technologies? Okay? Currently, this webinar, yes, for us we are here physically, but it is being transmitted almost, I must say, if we have international people globally, because now anyone who can have the access details, they can access this webinar, and it is being transmitted live. Already, we are looking at what? These technologies, and that is, for example, in cloud computing. Cloud computing is all about using computing resources anywhere, anytime, with any device. There are some of you who are accessing this webinar on your cell phone. Some are seated on their PC, some are using their tablets, and it is because of the rate at which technology has moved. Something like that wasn't there in the first, it wasn't there in the second, it wasn't there in the third. Okay? And then we have what we call cybersecurity. Probably you needed to log in to get into this webinar. Okay? We are seeing that the physical wars out there are reducing. All these wars are moving online. Okay? Some of us, the fact that we are now, for example, working from home, it is turning out to be a bit insecure because now the criminals are also moving online. So there is that component of cybersecurity. How do we secure ourselves? There are technologies out there that are meant to secure ourselves when it comes to online. And then cognitive computing, we are now trying to train our devices to start thinking like humans. Okay? This is where you hear of the word artificial intelligence, machines behaving like humans. You've seen robots, you've seen vacuum cleaners that are literally cleaning a place by their own selves. Okay, you've seen assembly lines right now that are just being controlled on a computer, sometimes even remotely. Okay, that is happening. Businesses are all embracing this. RFID technologies. Some of us, when we were getting inside here, we were using access cards. That is a good example of what an RFID technology is. Okay? The reason why, for example, supermarkets really open their doors, and then you wonder, how come customers do not just take out these products? Because all those products in those supermarkets have what we call RFID tags to keep track of that inventory, especially if it is being stolen or being bought, and they need to track it, basically. Then you have the Internet of Things. From itself, the Internet of Things. We are seeing gadgets communicating to each other, okay? A good example is, let's say, I think it's around time where, for example, my kids are supposed to be coming back from school. If I remember that I've left the swimming pool open, it's a matter of having my cell phone and dial it, and then the swimming pool does what? Closes. That is the Internet of Things. Things communicating to themselves. Okay? That is how quick technology is moving. Then we look at big data. Later on, when I bring in the component of COVID, you will see how much COVID is now accelerating this. You've not been hearing these things before because the pace has been so slow in adopting it. Probably all you have is your smart gadget. But you do not know how this smart gadget is receiving data. You do not know how WhatsApp is working. Okay? So indirectly, you are embracing this technology, only that you aren't aware that you are. A good example of big data. Big data is simply dealing with large volumes of data to pick out patterns of how a phenomenon is playing out. For example, you've been hearing the daily cases of how COVID is spreading. How do they decide that, okay, right now, Northwest University is the epicenter of Mafikeng. I'm not saying Northwest University is the epicenter for COVID in Mafikeng, but you wonder, where do they come to? How do they arrive at that decision? It's because they're using some data that they are analyzing to decide that, you know what, today, Mafikeng Northwest University hasn't been so good as far as the COVID numbers are concerned. And this has been countrywide. So there is software out there to pick out data patterns of how to decide that, you know what, let us intensify on the SOPs when it comes to this area, or even allocating resources to make sure that people don't die, for example, or businesses don't get affected so much. And then we've seen advanced robotics. Robotics ties well with cognitive computing, whereby robots are taking over work. Recently, I saw a video where vaccination, it's actually a robot that is now giving vaccinations out there. Currently, Northwest University is busy giving us vaccinations, but it is still human giving these vaccinations. But in other countries, it is now robots that are giving these vaccinations. Okay? We have robots that are making medical deliveries. Okay? That is an example. And then 3D printing. Some of you have seen these face shields. Those are being printed by what we call 3D printers. Okay? That is all technology. And then there's also machine-to-machine communications, whereby this computer communicates to another computer. A good example is when we were coming in at the gate, you saw that there was something like a tablet that was reading your temperature before it can let you in, and then it communicated with the access card transmitter to let you in, the fact that your temperature was within the acceptable temperatures to get into the university. This is all the technology. This is just a brief run-through of what the fourth industrial revolution technologies are. Of course, each of these breaks down into others. I just had to give a small background, okay? So, what are some of these benefits that the fourth industrial revolution comes with, okay? We are seeing economic growth, because all we see here is, yes, some of us think of job loss as a disadvantage, but we forget that actually it's going to improve economic activity. The smartness of devices improves on efficiency, on how products are being developed, etc. Labor is being reinvented, people are getting more skills, okay? I mean, a couple of years ago, people were minimizing the power of a smartphone, but at least on average, in every 5 people, you have 2 people using a smartphone. They're appreciating what a smartphone does, okay? There are some people whereby their whole life is on a smartphone now. There are people out there whereby all business is done on a smartphone. There are people who have spent years without stepping in a bank. Why? Because they can do their banking on a smartphone, okay? So we are seeing that kind of advantage. That is as far as financial services are concerned. We are seeing modernized agriculture, and this falls under RFID technologies, whereby these people producing these plants on a large scale, they do not need to go to their gardens to do what? To keep track of what is the temperature of the soil is, because there are sensors there that keep sending information to a certain computer in their offices to know that what? You know what? It's now so cold, maybe we need to heat the soil, or it's now so hot, the irrigation pumps have to come in. Of course, it is technology. Previously, it is people who used to do it, but because these are now large-scale farming, automation had to be done, okay? So there needs to be a balance of what we call loss of jobs compared to improving productivity. And then, of course, there is also improving healthcare and human capital. I don't know whether there is any of you inside here who has a smartwatch and the advantages of having a smartwatch. Imagine keeping track of your heart rate, keeping track of your oxygen levels, okay? Just being there knowing that your doctor is busy monitoring you. Such a thing wasn't possible before, okay? These smartwatches have the ability of knowing when you slept, or when you thought you were sleeping, but in the morning only to realize that you woke up at around 2 a.m. Probably you were sleepwalking, but you didn't know, okay? So it tracks the sleeping patterns. And in most cases, you find out that the way I'm sleeping recently, or my heart rate, you tend to go to the doctor and find out, you know what, this is how my heart is behaving. And that is all thanks to a smartwatch, okay? And then, of course, there are some disadvantages, okay? Like, for example, some of the African countries, we are slowly adapting to this, okay? Previously, there are some people who have been struggling to adapt to technology, basically because first of all, they do not have a background of using computers or a background of using these gadgets, so it is an I don't care attitude, okay? Which we shall see how COVID is forcing people now to embrace the technology, okay? There are some people who have refused even to use the banking apps. Why? Because they feel that one morning they'll wake up and all their money is gone because of installing maybe the Standard Bank app on their phone. Yet it is actually secure, okay? So there are some people who still have those concerns, okay? And then this point is very important, the inequality gap. It will continue to widen. Why? For example, not all people have the luxury of affording a smartphone. People still have those, how do they call it, the small phones whereby all they need is to call and receive calls. Okay, they can't, not because they don't want, but they can't afford. Then you have that one who can afford the smartphone, but they rarely have the data or the data bundles to run that smartphone. And then there are those who actually afford to have the smartphone, they afford to have the smartwatch, they can afford to have a tablet, they can afford to have an electric car, you get it? Or even those directors. If there are people who are just waiting for the next technology that is there, and then they'll get it. So those are the gaps. So it will continue widening. Already we are seeing what we need to do to try and close this inequality gap. Of course, it goes down to also the current economy, of course, the job loss and unemployment. But that won't stop the fourth industrial revolution from affecting us. That is the reality. And then, much as all these benefits are there are some countries which are failing to realize them. Why? They are not embracing it how it's supposed to be. Okay? Why? Because some of the people are never ready and skilled. For example, right now, the Department of Computer Science is already looking at how best we can adjust the curriculum to base all our modules around these technologies. Of course, there are some which are already factored in, but because this revolution is moving at a very fast pace, we need to adjust. And it shouldn't stop only in computer science modules. It is encouraged because, like you've seen, it's not only computer science that is going to be affected. Everyone is being affected by this revolution. Even an accountant there, yes, they did not do computer science and everything, but the robots, we are seeing artificial intelligence deciding to submit, for example, your tax returns, okay? So even the accountant out there has to be concerned, what are the current technologies in my areas that I need to go back and try and study or get used to before a robot takes over my job? Because that is where everything is heading. So we need to be ready and see how best we can get skilled. So what are the main concerns in South Africa, okay, as far as the fourth industrial revolution is? One, skilling, okay? Yes, we are in our universities or we are in all our institutions of learning. Have we factored in the fourth industrial revolution as far as the programs that we are offering? For me, actually, I advocate for at least, just like currently in the university whereby all students are required to do, I think, an English module just to be conversant, or even the other main languages, whereby all students are required to know this language. This has to happen for technology also, because it is something that we can't avoid now. So skilling has to happen immediately. Corruption is still a very big problem in the world, a big problem in our countries. There are technologies out there that are trying to help as far as corruption is concerned. There's wealth distribution. I've just been talking about these technologies are coming in, but they're just going to continue to widen the gap between the poor, the middle class, and the overrich. Okay? So there has to be, how do we bring in that person who can't even afford a cell phone to understand what the fourth industrial revolution is and how best they can prepare for it despite their status? And then, of course, education. How are we covering these gaps in knowledge when it comes to these changes? We've talked about already security. We've been talking about the labor challenges. And of course, that can be sorted by reskilling the current people. I think one of the institutions that is being affected by this technology are the banks. Some of you have gone to these banks whereby you rarely see very many people in the bank. Why? Because almost everything is being automated. Okay? So now, how do you reskill the current people working in the banking so that they do not have to lose their jobs? Okay? So that is one of the questions that need to be answered. So, the CEO of Microsoft made an observation that within 2 years, they've already seen that we've seen 2 years worth of digital transformation in 2 months. Why do you think so? Already, because of this COVID. People, the best example is, remember, we are stopping to work from our offices in order to implement the SOPs of social distancing, avoid crowding, and we're moving to working from home. Okay? What do you need to work from home? If we were to go back to that diagram, what technology is going to make sure you work from home? You need to access your computer remotely, you need to access the network remotely, you get it? So already, because of COVID-19, Satya observed that actually, we've been talking about people to prepare for the digital transformation and they weren't listening, but thanks to COVID, we are being forced to embrace it. That is how I can break down her quote, okay? So going to COVID in South Africa, I would like to commend the government for the plan they put out there to combat the spread of COVID-19. I won't go through each of these because there's a lot that has been done. Why I brought this response plan into this presentation is, if you're to look at number one, where the response plan for public health is, you look at number two, where they were looking at social relief and food security. Number three, how are they looking at national unity? Number four, how are they supporting businesses in the informal sector? How are they supporting business stimulus and rescue, those businesses that are falling out? And then communication and information. You see that they missed out on accommodating how the 4IR is being propelled by actually COVID-19. For me, I feel they had to prepare the nation for the fourth industrial revolution. Because, yes, they were busy preparing for COVID-19, but this COVID-19 they are preparing is now preparing the fourth industrial revolution. Because before COVID, remember, they were busy coming up with plans of how South Africa should move along with the fourth industrial revolution. So I feel they were also supposed to bring in the fourth industrial revolution and see how best it can work hand in hand to fight COVID-19 in South Africa. Okay? I just brought this in to show that much as they were planning this response plan, there is something missing on sorry? There's something missing on the fourth industrial revolution. Okay? So, the biggest question of this presentation, how is COVID-19 accelerating the need to adopt those technologies you saw? We all know what COVID-19 is. We all know the dangers. We all know what it has been, what it has forced us to do. Okay? From putting on masks, to keeping social distancing, to losing jobs. But then, how is it actually accelerating the need for this? It's no longer business as usual, as we know, because we are talking about it as the new normal, okay? There are some businesses which have closed. Those that have remained open, they've cut down on their employees. And even those employees they've cut down, they've been asked to work from home or even cut on their salaries just for them to survive, compared to being closed down. And then there is, in order to implement all those three, meaning you force people to work from home, that means you're going to be forced to what? To embrace those technologies, because how are you going to keep track of what they're doing, which is currently the challenge? You need a certain technology. So you see that for a business to survive, first of all, for example, if a business did not have, first of all, online presence, maybe they did not have a website, probably that business is closed right now. Remember previously, the government has been pioneering the projects of digital transformation. Some of them have been taking it lightly. Guess what? COVID has exposed them. Whichever business that didn't have what we call online presence, they did not have a portion of where they keep in touch with their customers. For example, if there was a business like a supermarket and did not have the online supermarket where people order goods, and then they are forced to close, that is how COVID-19 swallowed them up. Okay? Those who did have They weren't taking it serious. They are now taking it serious because they've seen the advantages. So we are going to look at, as far as economics is concerned, what is happening? What is COVID doing to our economics? Okay? Businesses out there are now quickly embracing these technologies because they do not have a choice. It is now a what? A necessity. COVID is here to stay. Look at now. We started with COVID. Now we are having variants. Okay? Forget about the conspiracy theories that actually in the next 10 years, we are going to be having variants and waves and everything. Okay? So you would rather prepare for that than be caught off guard. So businesses are now looking at how can 4IR keep us going, okay? For example, we saw what cloud computing is. I told you cloud computing is taking advantages of computing resources anywhere, anytime, with any device, okay? And actually, I think that there's a survey that was done by one of the IT companies in South Africa, and they found out that people are becoming more productive from home than they've been in the offices. And I personally have experienced that. I've tended to put in a lot of work from home because, look, when you've been in the office, you're always looking forward to 4:30 and you knock off. There's nothing to knock off when you're at home. You can get up at midnight, you onto your computer, you're assisting students 24/7, okay? That is, yes, there are some businesses that are greatly benefiting from this. Why? Because of COVID-19. Why? Because we are now working from home. So these technologies are making this possible. Then we briefly go to education. How are the current institutions of learning dealing with this? We know that if there are schools out there that did not have, again, online presence or that are not able, for different reasons, to have online classes, those schools are either closed or they are struggling. Okay? Thank God Northwest University already had the online platforms going, but mostly for sharing of resources. But now it came in handy because we moved swiftly into the online way of delivering classes, the online way of communicating to our students very quickly. And yes, it has its own challenges, but at least it has kept us above, okay? Of course, there are teachers and academics who are now being forced to learn. For example, if there was an academic, if there was a teacher who wasn't used to using a computer, they are being forced to do that because, guess what? They have to teach using that computer. They have to connect to a certain network for them to connect to their students because they no longer see their students physically because of COVID-19. So we can't say, of course, that this has worked in the whole of South Africa. We know that there are disadvantaged areas that do not know what electricity is, yet those students used to come to class. There's been those challenges. Those who have electricity, they do not have the gadgets. Those who have the gadgets, or those who have electricity and the gadgets, they do not have the resources to tune into the class or to log in. Much as the university has been trying, it has turned out to be very expensive, okay? So you see that we can't give that as a blanket analysis, that our schools and institutions, all of them have moved online. It is still very challenging. Those who have everything, they have electricity, they have a laptop, the university has given them resources, guess what? They are staying in a shack where there are 7 family members. That is not an atmosphere to learn, you see. So much as you try to address some challenges, there will always be a certain challenge. So when it comes to recommendations, we shall see how best this can be sorted out. And then you go to healthcare. Remember healthcare, that is the current crisis they are dealing with. How are they? COVID has forced them to look at 4IR. How? It is these technologies, like the 3D printing we talked about. 3D printing is like printing the jacket of this phone, okay? Some of you have seen the face shields. That is what we call 3D printing, okay? That is the technology that is being used to develop face shields to protect not only us, even the doctors out there. Because you've seen doctors putting on the face mask and then the shield itself to help them protect their eyes. There is artificial intelligence that is helping to develop COVID-19 contact tracing. Okay? That is artificial intelligence behind. We are seeing all these numbers. Why? Because they have applications that are tracking. You've entered a place whereby they take down your temperature, they take down your details, because they need to know, in case you turn out to be COVID, they would want to know how many people have you come into contact with. And then they go check up on those people. This is how these numbers are coming up. These numbers are not coming from space. They are using software out there to keep track of these infections. Okay? Then we have what we call the drones that are soon to be used to deliver medical supplies. Again, to do what? To limit the contact between people. Okay? And of course, we researchers and some of the medics are using what we call machine learning to search for repositories of published articles. This is how, look at how fast they came up with the vaccine. It's because technology was there. It was very easy to access the researchers out there, and experiments were easily done because of the current technology that is there, artificial intelligence being one of those. So it has, I was discussing with my brother and said, you know, with this 4IR revolution, imagine if we got this pandemic before 1980. I've chosen before 1980 because I think that is when the internet was not yet here. What would have happened? Because you see that actually technology has done so well in helping us combat this pandemic. Okay. Of course, challenges remain. Okay. We still have very poor and non-existing infrastructure, which blocks internet connectivity. All in all those technologies that you've seen, they'll need a network to run on, and that is the internet. I've just been mentioning that disadvantaged student who might not have electricity, or they can have that, but they do not have access to the internet. So we still need to look at those challenges, okay? If they do have the electricity and they do have the gadgets, the data is becoming so high, okay? Or if they have the data then it's not easy to get the software, it's not easy to get the hardware, okay? You've seen how expensive Zoom is. Zoom is one of the applications that are being used in the online learning, okay? And of course, we can't miss mention of the loss of more jobs, okay? So what are the recommendations? Of course, the recommendation is improving of infrastructure and the education system to create a fertile ground for South Africa to reap the rewards of the fourth industrial revolution, as you saw them, okay? So that is why I said, yes, COVID has been full of negative impacts, loss of lives, loss of jobs, uncomfortable life, okay? The reason why I took off a mask, I can't speak for long without taking it off. Thank God the officials here allowed me to do it, because at least there is a recognizable distance and they have their masks on. Otherwise, I wouldn't have lasted this long with the mask on. But we have nothing to do, okay? So, now that COVID-19 has forced us to rely on the 21st century technologies, our governments, okay, not only the South African governments, even if there are those out there, the same applies, because COVID is everywhere. We need to consider strategies of preparing our people, preparing our young generation, to preparing even our high school students of what 4IR is. And of course, how do you do that? We have to look at the curriculums right now. Okay, those schools that are not teaching the students some bit of technology, what are they waiting for? They shouldn't put the pressure to, they shouldn't put the pressure onto the universities. It should start from down there. So what kind of skills are needed in this case? Okay? So SASETA came up with some of the skills that are needed to prepare for the technical, for the fourth industrial revolution. There are many, but these are some of them. And these are not skills only meant for computer science students. No, these are skills meant for you, even if you know nothing about computers, because as you saw, 4IR is going just about anywhere. You might be having a job somewhere, start thinking of how the fourth industrial revolution is going to affect your industry, okay, or your job in particular. There are some technical skills you need to have. You need to have cyber skills. If you've been that person who doesn't want to do online banking, find out, why is it that other people are doing it? What am I doing? Why am I so scared of doing my banking on my smartphone? Okay? You see that right now, actually, it is even risky to handle cash, because they say these money notes are also a spreader of this COVID. Are we together? So that means you should do your banking more electronically, than before. Then, do you have some basic computer skills? Or what information technology skills do you have? That is as far as your industry is concerned, because it is bound to be affected. And of course, we have the interpersonal skills. We've seen that COVID-19 has exposed most of us. Some of us get shocked. Most of these people, they have the ability to fight this COVID-19, but because of getting shocked of it, some of them die of shock. Okay, some of them are not able to adapt. So these are some of the skills. I won't mention all of them, but combining these, this is one way that we can prepare for the fourth industrial revolution. So to conclude, of course, amidst this pandemic, we shouldn't forget that actually technology is still evolving, and COVID-19 has just propelled that more. So meaning our organizations and institutions, they have to be more creative, okay? They have to redesign curriculum programs. Companies have to reskill their workers, okay? And then, of course, system designers, now they were talking to us. We need to incorporate government, civil society, and health practitioners during system development. Of course, we teach this to the students, so this has been ongoing. And then, of course, universities and firms should be key players in coming up with these strategies and plans going forward. I think this leads me to the end of the presentation. I would like to thank you so much for paying attention and listening. If there are any questions that came in during my presentation, I would gladly take them. Any discussion, deduction, suggestions is also welcome. Thank you so much.
I'm still stuck on the conspiracy theories. 10 years of COVID-19, my goodness. I hope they find a solution. Thank you to everybody who's been tuned in from 12. It was a very interesting and easy talk. Very easy to the ear. We could understand everything. And yeah, the topic for today was how COVID-19 is fast-tracking the fourth industrial revolution. And the conversation was held by Dr. Francis Lugayizi. All right, guys, it is time for that segment that a lot of people love. It is the question and comment section. So I hope wherever you are, you're typing in your comments and your questions. It's going to be very interesting. I've been seeing a lot of comments and questions popping up. So without wasting any time, Q&A. Let's go straight to the Q&A desk. It is manned by Miss Kihomuditswe Murumudi. She'll be assisting us by relaying those questions to Dr. Francis Lugayizi. Ma'am.
There's a question from Nontando Sizani. She says, how can 4IR affect radiation therapists?
How can?
4IR affect radiation therapists.
Okay. Again, if you had in my presentation, I said 4IR is bound to affect all areas of specialization. So depending on what you deal with, the first way you can understand 4IR, you need to go and look at what are the current technologies that are being used in your area of specialization. And because I'm not a radiation therapist, but the best way I can advise that person is look at the technologies that first of all you're using when it comes to your area, and then the jobs that you are working towards too. What are the requirements? What are they looking for? You get it? So whatever they're dealing with, you need to start with where is your technology heading as far as your specialization goes. So I can't come out and say, you know what, in radiation therapy, this is what is happening. That is another presentation for another time, because I would need to first of all understand your area of specialization and then come and advise accordingly that, you know what, in your area you need to make sure you get this kind of training, because you need to understand that this is how robots are going to be threatening your job. You get it? So that is how best I can reply. Thank you.
And then Manzini is asking, can you please elaborate on loss of jobs?
Okay. Loss of jobs, I'll use an example. I've been using the example of the banking sector, okay? For example, I do not know the last time I entered a bank. Or even if I can roll back 5 years, okay, 15 years, when I opened my bank account, I had to, when depositing money, I had to go to the bank. Who was there to receive me? A bank teller. When I had to withdraw money, I had to go to the bank. Who was there? A bank teller. Guess what happened? They introduced ATMs. These ATMs, it's not people sitting in these ATMs. Everything is automated, okay? You know that now you can deposit money with the ATMs, you can withdraw money with ATMs, you can make transfers, you can buy things on your cell phone. So the bank now asks the teller inside, really, are you just going to sit here for the whole day? They have to retrench that banker. That is one of the examples. Again, it goes to, if you're a banker, look at the technology strategy of the bank. Is it going to affect you? If it is yes, how are you going to reskill yourself? That is just an example. So it's technology trying to replace human operations, basically. That is how jobs are getting lost. Thank you.
Last question from Bakang Ditibani. He or she is asking, what are the effects of 4IR in the labor sector which leads to the loss of jobs?
I think that is the same question. It's the same question.
Oh, I think there's another one.
The 4IR continues to evolve at a very rapid pace within our societies, both directly and indirectly. So please use this opportunity to send in your comments and, of course, your questions. We have another comment or question? All right.
Okay, it's from Nadine. How relevant is 4IR to South Africa, considering the concept was created by a German researcher to address German economic goals? In South Africa, we lack fundamental infrastructure in most areas for internet access.
Quickly, yes, these technologies are created elsewhere, but look at how they are affecting us. These companies come and invest in our countries. They are leading to the loss of jobs. So it is, unfortunately, that is the way of life when it comes to technology. It's like change, okay? You might want not to change, but change is going to come and change you. So, for example, again, most of us were not fans of smartphones. It is not something that we invented. But because of the advantages that the smartphone came with, we are embracing the smartphone. So the same applies to these technologies. Yes, we might not have the infrastructure, we might not have the hardware and everything to deal with it, but that is the reality, okay? For example, when COVID came in, we had no choice and say, no, you know what, in South Africa we don't want COVID. It came in. Are we going to accept COVID to take us with it? So the same applies to technology. You can either accept and embrace it and move along with it, or be left behind. Okay? I was just giving an example of roll back 20, 25 years ago, or before 1980. Imagine this COVID-19 took place then. What would have happened without technology? I think we would be facing very many infections, because I've been talking about technology helping us to track who has infected who and where have they gone, okay? So for example, you just end up entering Gauteng, not knowing that that is the current epicenter. The president wouldn't know that, you know what, this period, we need to do what? To implement lockdown so that the spread of COVID stops. Without technology, such decisions cannot be made, okay? Yes, the challenges are there. We just need now to concentrate on how do we deal with these challenges. That is why in one of the recommendations is government needs to now think of strategies of how to improve the infrastructure to embrace these technologies, because they are here to stay. Thank you.
All right, it is the webinar, the last one that will be held here in the Northwest University Mafikeng campus. And thank you so much to everybody who is participating in the chat box. We've got more questions and comments. I'll be leading you guys to the Q&A desk.
Achike Kana is asking, 4IR rollout before COVID-19 versus during the pandemic. Are we not being manipulated to consume technology at a rate that suits an agenda being pushed by a small group of people? I fear the 80-20 rule at work here.
It goes to what I've been saying. Unfortunately, that is the reality, okay? It is change. Like I said, you either adopt to the change, or change will change you, okay? For example, again, there is another theory that with time, it might not be easy to move without a COVID-19 vaccination certificate. It's not yet confirmed, but this is how the things come about. Guess what? We will be requested to vaccinate. It is not what we like, but because it is the reality, it will need to be done. Again, it is the current change. It is changing things. You either adopt to it and live comfortably, or you'll be forced to do it, unfortunately.
All right, let's make things a bit interesting. Can I please get somebody to give Honest the mic? He's got a question for us. One of the people attending the live seminar held by Dr. Francis Lugayizi. It is the National Science Week, and yeah, we're celebrating the 21st annual of it. Honest?
Hi, I have a question for the professor. When it comes to the rapid use of technology and the machines that we have, how do you think businesses and industries will adapt when it comes to energy wastage and climate change, for instance, especially when it comes to data centers, cryptocurrency, and blockchains?
Okay. So your question is, how should businesses adapt to climate change and blockchain technology? You looked at one of my presentations is, remember, first of all, we are facing a lot of corruption, okay? According to the small research that I've done in blockchain technology had the ability of at least curbing corruption. If you understand what blockchain technology is, it keeps track of the ledgers, okay? Whereby it's not easy to open up these ledgers of these different accounts, let's say in a procurement process, unless you have a specific what? A hash. And all this ties well with machine learning, because it is not humans doing these things, okay? Just like you see, for me, I believe these systems that we use, especially in the banking, they're actually safe. They become unsafe because of the habits of we humans. Someone does not hack you because of a weakness in technology. They hack you because of a human weakness of maybe putting in a very weak password. Okay? Coming to, I think, agriculture. I showed you cognitive computing where we bring in sensors. Okay? And I said, for example, large-scale farming. Okay? There are sensors out there that are being used in real-time monitoring of crops out there. Yes, it is leading to loss of jobs, but reality is a business has to make profits. So now the challenge is, how do these businesses, or how does government make sure the people are getting skilled to work along with, for example, these robots? Okay, I'm not like selling computer science here, because indirectly another person will say, this guy is trying to get more students into computer. Because remember, all these technologies, there will be people who have to manage them. Okay, but you, the person working at the farm, how are you going to motivate to the owner of the farm that you have to stay there when they've observed that, no, he has a system to help them water the plants for this matter? Okay, it goes back to what I've been saying, that technology is here. Unfortunately, we have to adopt accordingly. Okay, thank you.
We're still focusing on the question and comment segment. I'll be taking questions and comments from the chat box. And the questions are directed to the speaker. Ms. Kihomudizwe and Ms. Lerato have been assisting us by relaying those questions to Dr. Francis Lugayizi. Thank you so much, Honest, for your question. And let's move on to Ms. Kihomudizwe.
Seth Mukiti is saying, as a computer science student, I must say I am embarrassed that I had not considered the positive impact of COVID-19. This was eye-opening. Thank you, doctor. And then Manzini has a question. What is being done to ensure that those people who've lost jobs are likely to, sorry, I made a mistake. What is being done to ensure that those people whose jobs are likely to be lost due to 4IR, what's the solution? For an example, based on the example you mentioned of ATM.
Again, reskilling. If those who have lost them currently, they just need to go back and reskill themselves. Those who have not yet got the jobs, they need to be strategic in what jobs are they applying for and how will they be able to sustain those jobs. Then to the government, it is now the challenge of the government to pioneer projects, to pioneer programs that are going to help reskill the population. Otherwise, they are going to continue giving out, how are they called? In the relief plans, this issue of giving out handouts, okay? For example, in the US, much as they've reopened again, there is a problem that actually the fact that they used to give out handouts or relief packages to their people, someone was getting a relief package which is more than their salary. So they do not even want to go back to work because they are going to be getting less than what the government has been doing them. That is the disadvantage of now giving out these relief packages. So imagine if the government was already reskilling these people. And then, of course, to the institutions of learning, again, we need to align our programs to the 4IR so that students don't reach into the industry only to lose those jobs again. Okay, thank you.
One of the most interesting talks, so many questions and comments from the chat box. Very interesting. Let us go back to the Q&A desk.
Rodney Sibupelo is saying, very wonderful presentation, doctor. I think we still need to adapt to changes, not only looking at challenges, but in preparation for the worst while integrating 4IR. It's a wake-up call.
Thank you, Rodney.
And then Pimelo Mogeti is saying, I would like to know, in your opinion, is South Africa in its current economic state ready to go into 4IR?
They have no choice.
That's it, thank you. Oh, sorry.
All right, we're going to be taking more questions and comments from Ms. Tidimalo.
Thank you, Doctor, for such a great presentation. I just want to say this. I need to take it out of my chest. You know, I did BSc Chemistry, Maths, and Applied Maths, right? When I was during my curriculum, I did not do any computer science at all. And then when I got to third year, I was expected to code using MATLAB. And I was like, what? So now I had to teach myself how to program from start, which was a challenge. So I like the fact that you actually touched on the reskilling of education and everything as a concern. And I wanted to ask you, do you think for me to actually make my degree relevant currently with the situation we're in, do you think I should probably pursue some kind of course, maybe master in MATLAB coding, or do you think there's other more relevant languages that I could actually master in? Okay.
I wish you were one of my students. Normally, the first lecture I give is career guidance, always, okay, at the beginning of the year. And always my advice is, one of my classes is one of the exit levels, that is third year. And one thing I tell them is, during job hunting, don't look at the job because it asked for the degree that you've done, okay? Even right now, even if you don't intend to look for a job, it is still the right time to look at the adverts of those jobs. Yes, assume you have the degree. Look at the other requirements. It could be a requirement of knowing how to use a certain software. You're not under pressure to get that job because, for example, you might still have 2 years or 1 year. You can use that 1 year to reskill yourself. I mean, technology is there. Look at this YouTube here. I'm sure you've confessed yourself that you taught yourself. That means it's possible. So as we go through our processes as university to realign all these programs, to make sure such a thing doesn't happen, you can start on this process. When you look at a possible job that you would want to be, what requirements are they looking for away from the basic requirement of a degree? There's a particular company that might be looking for an expert in MATLAB. So it is, because we do not teach MATLAB, for example, as a software, because it is just one of the tools that we use to help get assignments done, get projects done. But in the process of getting the projects done, remember, you're learning. But remember, the company needs proof that you know it. So what do? You need to do your homework and find out, is there a vendor out there who trains me and gives me that proof in form of a certificate? In computer science, we have what we call certifications. On top of a degree, okay, some companies require a form of certification that actually you can repair a computer physically. Yes, we know you did computer science, you came out with a distinction, but we need someone who is going to prove to us that you can dismantle a computer and put it back together. Guess what? I pull out my certificate that I did it for 3 weeks. So my advice to you is, if that job requires MATLAB as one of the requirements, or especially where they say an added advantage, they mean those things when they put them in the job advert. An added advantage will have, having MATLAB would be an added advantage. Make sure, is there a company that can train me to become an expert in MATLAB? It's just an example. And this applies to all of you who might answer questions along the career routes. The same applies to you. It's just a different field. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let us go back to Ms. Kehomodizwe. I think she'll be taking the last comment and question.
Achikekana is saying, take for example, what has happened to unemployment in South Africa recently. Even people who went to school can't keep up with the technology. We were not ready for the change. Very few people were affected positively by the recent changes. African solutions to African problem approach is needed.
Much as I would want to agree, but again it comes to change. Unfortunately, these technologies are here to stay. I would have thrown back that question to him or her and say, let him give me an example where an African solution has worked well, especially if they have to leave the continent of Africa. Because I don't think you'd apply an African solution in Europe. Yes, unfortunately things are like that, but then I think the best way to solve that is come up with ways of supporting innovation more, because these technologies are coming up because of someone is busy innovating. So what stops us from addressing our African problems through innovation? Because we also have the brains, okay? So why not embrace these technologies while to use them improve our innovation skills so that we start finding African solutions to our African problems through our own innovation. Maybe they will also start adopting our technologies. So yes, I do support that, but right now, let us use these technologies to improve our innovation. Thank you.
There's a Q&A section whereby Ms. Kihomudizwe and Ms. Lerato are assisting us by relaying those questions to our guest speaker. Our guest speaker being Dr. Francis Lugayizi, and he started his talk at 12, and this is the last talk we're going to be having here broadcast at Northwest University Mafikeng campus. Tomorrow is going to be an exciting day. We're heading to Potchefstroom campus, whereby the last and finale talk will be held that side. And speaking about the talk of tomorrow, Prof. Alida Herbst will be exploring multiple losses and complications in grief as mental health concern during COVID-19 pandemic. So please make sure that you tune in tomorrow. Let us go back to the Q&A desk. Ms. Kiho.
Ironic is saying an eye-opening presentation. For some reason, I believe the pandemic is waking RSA government to adopt 4IR technology. Thank you, sir.
Yes, that is why I called it a silver lining.
And then Achike Kane is saying, this is by far the best session that I have a part of. Thank you so much, Prof, and to everyone who has been part of this session.
Thank you so much, Achi. Thank you, everybody who's been participating and engaging. We're going to be taking one last question, going back to Ms. Keho.
Ndumiso is asking, the SAHRC is probing an incident where a tenant was allegedly forced to either get vaccinated or have his rental lease terminated. Do you think SAHRC will stop intervening in such incidents?
What is SARH?
He'll answer that.
Yes, I need to know that, just in case there are some legal implications.
And then there's another one. Nadine is saying South Africa will end up adopting technologies, not inventing new tech. The first world will sell us old technology, putting us in a vulnerable security position. Consider the solar winds hack in the USA.
I do not agree with that. That is why we have the Department of Science. Look at the next word. That word is not for decoration. There is innovation taking place. So I do not agree with that.
I found the meaning of the acronym.
Okay.
It means South African Human Rights Commission.
Now, please repeat that question, you see.
The South African Human Rights Commission is probing an incident where a tenant was allegedly forced to either get vaccinated or have his rental lease terminated. Do you think the South African Rights Commission will stop intervening in such incidents?
I'm afraid I'm not in position to give an opinion on that, now that there is a probe on it.
Let us conclude the Q&A section. Ms. Lerato.
Okay, from Johnny, in addition to our computers and phones, we have a whole other connection coming into our lives as well. We now have security cameras, garage opener, doorbell, fridge, etc. connected, and with each connected device we have, it means we have another point of entry and possible point of attack. So, if the goal of cybersecurity is to prevent attacks with so many devices and different manufacturers of these devices, how do we prevent attacks? Thank you.
Very interesting. I think that question comes from the Internet of Things, like I gave an example on the technologies. And that is why we have research out there. So if you're to go and research more on Internet of Things, there are technologies out there that are meant to prevent those attacks. I want to tell you that as far as technology is concerned, there is nothing that is 100%, okay? I'm a strong believer that if something is made by a human being, it can be done, undone by a human being, okay? So like I said, those who still have a problem with doing, for example, internet banking, it starts with you to believe in the internet banking and follow their guidelines. That is why if something is to happen to your account and then you report, they'll first try and investigate, did you do whatever they advise you to do, okay? So to me, I feel these systems, they are safe. You find that these vulnerabilities, there is a human weakness somewhere. Maybe you gave out your password. Some of you have a tendency of using your girlfriend, boyfriend's date of birth and as a password. You get it. And guess what? That is very easy too. Yet, when we are coming up with passwords, you advised otherwise. So you find that with all these breaches, there has to be a human weakness out there. I'm not saying they are 100% breach proof, but research is ongoing. That is why we have the Department of Science and Innovation supporting. We have the National Research Foundation supporting all research out there. And there is research in Internet of Things to deal with preventative attacks, etc. So I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but research is ongoing to make sure that these are secure. And to some extent, yes, they are.
Ladies, are we done with the questions and answers? Questions and comments? Thank you so much to our distinguished guest, Dr. Francis Lugayizi. He even said, sure, that was a lot. That was a lot. A round of applause to him, ladies and gentlemen. All right. I'm being told that we have one more. I'm being told we have one more. Let us go for the last time at the question and comment desk. Ms. Keho.
To recite my question, what makes you think eventually vaccines will be enforced on people through vaccine passports without Human Rights Institute intervening? That's from Ndumiso again.
To me, I have my opinion that eventually, yes, we might be, because just like you can't be assisted without, for example, an ID, okay? So for example, if you're a constant international traveler, they'll make it part of the traveling requirements. You get it? Of course, literature is still out there convincing people of what vaccines do. That is the first way. But I think it's going to happen, unfortunately, but we need to look at the reality. COVID-19 is here. We've seen how people suffer. You get it? So if you've done your due diligence and government is doing its due diligence, and I'm sure, I don't think government can come out and deliberately kill its own people. You get it? So we need to, basically, it starts from you. Do your own research so that you make your own decisions, so that if something is to happen, then you don't blame anyone, because it would be your choice. You get it? But when it comes to, let's say, for example, if the university one day comes out and say, you know what, our staff members, if you're not vaccinated, unfortunately, we'll have to cancel your contract. That's the problem now. You get it? So it's on personal level. We need to know, first of all, why are we getting vaccinated? Okay? Then you take it from there. For me, that is my opinion. You need to do your own due diligence and find out, and then you make your own choice. Thank you.
I had already thanked Dr. Francis Lugayizi. Should we give you another round of applause? Yes. Okay.
Please hurry up before our next question comes.
Thank you so much to everybody tuning in to our webinar, our last webinar here at Northwest University Mafikeng campus. It has been an amazing week. And again, I'd like to thank Dr. Mateo Koitsiwi, Dr. Hazel Mufandu, Professor Teremi Dubi, Professor Olio Bokola Babalola, and of course, our distinguished guest of the day, Dr. Francis Lugayizi. Tomorrow, we're going to be having a talk at Potchefstroom campus. Please, it's the last one. We're going to be ending it with a bang. So make sure you tune in from 12. It will be held by Prof. Alida Herbist, who will be exploring multiple losses and complications in grief as mental health concern during COVID-19 pandemic. And talking about COVID-19 pandemic, we are still in a pandemic. If you're at home, please don't forget to sanitize and, of course, keep social distancing. Now, in conclusion, words are not enough to express the gratitude we have towards everyone responsible for this event. It's been an honor to be among such accomplished individuals and to be able to have facilitated this occasion before you all. Thank you all for being here today and live streaming this webinar and taking the time to patiently listen to what our guest speakers had to say, as well as engaging. Let's do this again at 12 p.m. As we conclude today's program, please give another round of applause and warm welcome to representative of Science Center and the facilitator of the National Science Week, Ms. Didimalo Damani. She will be giving us the closing speech, and yeah, we're done. It's a wrap.
Thank you so much, Host Queen. Even though you basically said everything, I'm not needed here. Okay, let me just extend our thank you to you again, Dr. Lugayizi. We are indeed moving and making it possible through science and innovation, of course. Secondly, let me take this opportunity to thank the audience, both from home and the ones who are joining us in the venue. This wouldn't be possible without you. And thirdly, let me thank the powerful team, starting with our MC, Miss Queen. She's indeed making this week very interesting. And from our chat box, let me also take this opportunity to thank Oski Dume. I know her as Mapuli. Oski Khomuditso. And most importantly, let me thank the one and only powerful Sister Boss. Thank you so much, Ms. Lerato Mulematsi, for having us here and for such the greatest courtesy and everything. We are eating in Mafikeng. Yeah. And to our technical team, thank you so much for always being here on time before all of us to set up everything and making this thing so smooth. And also to our IT team from the Northwest University, thank you so much for everything. And lastly, let me take this opportunity to thank, on behalf of the Science Center, let me thank the South African Agency for Science and Technology Advancement with the DSI as well, the Department of Science and Innovation. Thank you.